Well, hello everyone. I'm Michael Osinski.
And I'm Tyler Esselman.
And this One Goes to 11.
It's the podcast where we invite someone onto the show to share an album which they believe is perfect.
So perfect, in fact, Tyler Esselman, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
That is my name, right?
Dear listeners, we played a little joke on you. This isn't Tyler Esselman. This is music journalist extraordinaire Evan Sawdey. Welcome, Evan.
Hello. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I got confused about my actual name on here, but I also feel like I'm not normally hosting this podcast. I feel like something's amiss. Something might even be awry.
That's so true, Evan. So true. But I mean, I can understand a new year, new you. You just want to try a different identity. Totally.
I was
understand.
really trying to steal his identity. Shame on me, truly.
Well, dear listeners, in order to kick off season 6, Tyler and I decided it will be fun for us to have the opportunity to nominate another album, because we did it way back in season 1 and we sort of missed being able to do that. And we thought it would be doubly fun if we invited on a guest host who could serve as an adjudicator for our cases. And I chose Evan Sawdey, who you might remember from season 4. He nominated the Avalanches Since I Left You.
Well, and I personally am very thrilled to be invited here for 11Z's All-Stars, truth be told. But let's also be real here. As part of the fun, as part of the joy to this here, you invited me on. The album has been selected, but Tyler has no idea what's going on.
This is true. He knows obviously the album we're talking about because he picked it, but he doesn't know that you're here. He's not even in the Zoom meeting yet. We're going to let him in just a second. But also one other little quick thing. Hearty welcome to our Apple Podcasts listeners who are joining us for the first time, because season 6 we're starting up on Apple. We're expanding to another platform, so that's exciting.
The global takeover of 11Z's is just it's been welcome. It's been waiting. It's finally happening.
Exactly. So, but we're not going to reveal the album yet, even though, as I like to joke, the listener already knows what the album is because it's in the episode title. What's your experience with this band and this album? Are you terribly familiar with them?
So the fun thing is that I am a slightly older gentleman in this world, so I was around for certain things when they happened. I wasn't a Wilco fan around the time that everything was starting to break down in terms of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, their breakthrough album, but A Ghost is Born was the first Wilco album I ever purchased, and that was on CD. It was right after all of the album of the year, album of the decade hype was happening right there. So I got this, I was in on the gate, and this was actually kind of my gateway, because even though I think I had a digital copy of Yankee Hotel, or I ripped it off of a friend in college somewhere, I ultimately then started going through their back catalog extensively. But before anything else, A Ghost is Born was kind of a bouncing off point for everything that Wilco that followed. So it was fascinating in that sense too, where like of all the kind of entry point albums, or at least all the ones to have the first 2 that you listen to, it's a wild one, well, rest assuredly, but it is so conflicted and so beautiful in that conflict. There's a tension to this album that isn't always apparent, especially on latter day Wilco albums, that is still very prominent here. So yeah, that's my familiarity with it.
Yeah, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot was my into the band, and you're right. Now I feel like this album and Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, and I would argue probably like Sky Blue Sky and maybe Summer Teeth a little bit. Or some people sort of look at that as like a
epitome.
Yeah, or like a golden age
era
of Wilco or something like that. But
I'm a Summer Teeth super fan, so we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. Yeah. Dear listeners, you should know that usually Tyler and I have a specific list of questions we go through that we ask our guests when they make a case. But since this is our second time doing this, and since we're the hosts, we're going to be a little more strict on each other and like really hold our somethings to the fire. What's the expression? Hold our feet to the fire? Is that what it is?
That is the expression.
I don't know. I'm just call me Mr. Malaprop over here. In any case, well, should we let Tyler in?
I think so. Okay. The grand unveiling.
Here we go.
The secret lip sync assassin.
Yes!
Greetings, Tyler.
Essel boy.
I am pleased. I am very pleased. I couldn't be happier. Someone who's going to put me through my paces. That's what I wanted.
Welcome to your podcast, Tyler.
Well, I thank you. It's lovely. It's lovely to be on the proverbial other side of the table.
Yeah.
Ready to get back to some podcasting. So excited.
So the format's a little bit different, dear listeners. We're not, I mean, like, there's still going to be, we'll take care of a standout track in the middle, but we're doing things just a little bit different. One thing we are keeping, which I'm sure makes Tyler very happy because it is supposedly everybody's favorite segment as well as his. What's it called, Tyler?
It's called The Beginner's Guide to A Ghost is Born by Wilco in 60 seconds.
That is true, and I'm doing it obviously because he can't do it himself. We're not going to make Evan do put together a whole 60-second intro because that it is a level of craftsmanship that is. I mean it's above the pay grade for this, which is small.
It's above the pay grade, but it's certainly not above your skill level. Evan,
no. Yeah,
but let's also be clear. Tyler is the one who will be giving out points on this too. He will be actually assessing Michael. For maybe the first time ever.
I think I should. Personally, that's how we usually do it for the regular guest. So I think I should be.
Feel free to evaluate my 60-second intro. I'm relatively happy with this one.
Are you? Okay.
But I think, Tyler, since you're going to be evaluating Evan, I think you should put 60 seconds on the clock. You can be my timer for this.
All right. Well, let me know when you are ready, Mr. Michael.
Okay. I am ready. Give me the go-ahead whenever you're good to go.
All right. We are going in 3, 2, 1.
Break out your grills and guitars, y'all, because we've got Big White Suburban Dad Energy this week. It's Chicago's own Wilco, formed by Jeff Tweedy after the acrimonious 1993 breakup of his alt-country band Uncle Tupelo. Wilco quickly became difficult to categorize. They signed with Reprise Records in 1994 and released 3 albums before being dropped from the label after they submitted songs that were deemed inaccessible, the songs that would lead to the departure of guitarist Jay Bennett, the songs that would comprise the band's most successful album to date, and the unofficial soundtrack to the city of Chicago, 2002's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. 2 years later, the band released A Ghost is Born, a wildly experimental and critically divisive album, winner of the Grammy for Best Alternative Album, produced by Jim O'Rourke, with influences ranging from Neil Young to krautrock to the Beatles. It even includes an 11-minute stretch of noise meant to replicate the sound of Tweedy's frequent migraines. Tweedy would enter a dual diagnosis rehab soon after the album's release, something he credits as being one of the best things he's ever done. And with good reason. Today, they are arguably one of the most successful rock bands in America.
Oh, right on the nose,
Dang.
Right on the money.
Dang.
I'll be honest, I was worried for a half second there. I was a little bit scared, but concise, beautiful, migraine-inducing. It's everything I wanted in an intro, quite frankly. All right, Tyler, how do you think Michael did in terms of giving the beginner's guide?
I think that might be your best 60-second intro yet. Full stop. I think that was your best yet, personally. So I'm going to give it both of the Marine Hotel towers that are depicted on the you get 2 of them, but those are high value though.
They are high value.
They're kind of like Fabergé eggs in building form, I would say.
I think that intro should have been at the end of Less Than You Think, quite frankly. That's what we should have done.
oh dear Lord. We'll get into that.
You still would have had 14 minutes of great, of a great experience.
Dear Lord,
Michael's favorite track of 2004, right there.
Yeah. So, Tyler, I mean, well, obviously we're going to we will talk about that track. But something we're doing a little bit different this time around is obviously we've, hopefully, dear listeners, you know who we are, I imagine you do, and our history with music. But since we're trying to up the ante a little bit to start, Tyler, we're going to give you up to 5 uninterrupted minutes, okay, to make your opening statement for why Wilco's A Ghost is Born is a perfect album.
Yes. Okay? I feel good about this. I feel good about an opening statement as a as a way to set the stage, as it were. I want this to be done. You're going to be in my house now, okay?
All right. So, you got any questions, Tyler, before you make your opening statement for this one?
I don't. I just want to express one more time, though, how happy I am that Evan Sawdey is here. This is when you don't know what your day is going to be like, and then this happens. My God. What a beautiful thing. Okay, yeah. So if you got 5 minutes on the clock for me,
it's gonna be a soft 5.
Okay,
I'm gonna look at what time you start talking when it says on my laptop, and then we'll all sort of.
All right. So essentially, you're reserving the right to cut me off, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, then go for it.
Your Honor, the Right Noble Lord Osinski, esteemed guest Lord Evan Sawdey, and may it please the court. I come before the tribunal as one of its founders, managers, and most loyal servants to plead once again for another redoubtable musical artifact deserving ascension into this body's pantheon of perfection. I first want to express a developing thought I've had around the definition of this mythical perfect album we've been seeking. Based upon the testimony we've received from our guests, it feels like there's still a wide variety of vocabulary around the subject. My latest thought on the definition might be that to be a perfect album, there must be at least one element of each song that contextually feels utterly right and true. This could be a single lyric or musical passage, or it could just be that a song contrasts so sharply from the others on the album that it places the album's quality in stark relief by its sheer presence. Case in point, Smackwater Jack from Carole King's 1971 opus, Tapestry. It's great, but it really just shows you how great the other stuff is. So, sorry, Jack. Which brings me to today's raison d'etre, Wilco's A Ghost is Born. A divisive album in Wilco's vast body of work, but a truly singular piece of music when examined closely. While at first glance at the discourse around it, one might think the going opinion is that it's baggier and less incisive than the band's strongest work. This album was created, though, in a thoroughly vulnerable, personal way. Even in its hardest moments, you can feel the looming pain behind the notes, like a roiling midsummer thunderstorm spinning itself darkly across an Illinois cornfield. This reveals a tenderness inherent to the band that has built an admirable, diverse following over the past 30 years, and it has been 30 years this year. I don't know if you guys noticed that. The amorphous rock, folk, country, punk sound that they've cultivated is rich and brimming with lyrics that both envelop and slice by turns. And the crazy thing, honestly, is that they just keep getting better. But let's get back to the album for a second. Apparently, there was a lot of criticism of it at the time in 2004. I wouldn't know. I was still rather young. That calling it, I think the word inaccessible was already used in the 60-second intro. Indulgent, and my favorite bit of criticism that I came across was that it had a worrying lack of focus, which I think is kind of. I mean, it's definitely evocative of something, right? But when you think of where we know these guys to have been during this album's creation, you realize that might be like a fairly accurate depiction of the inner life of them at the time. We know Jeff was suffering from both outrageous migraines and a worsening dependence on Vicodin. So that pain and fear that is so palpable at moments throughout the album is always lurking. It's just like the own pain and fear in our own heads and hearts. So I think it's valuable to have that sort of expression. It's those ideas like, will I ever be able to change? Why does it have to hurt like this? Who am I to feel pain when there are so many others out there who have it worse? And that sentiment is actually directly pulled from Jeff's excellent memoir, Let's Go So We Can Get Back. And it's something that one of the men in his support group in rehab admonishes him for. He's diminishing his own pain in the circle. And this guy admonishes him, pushing back, saying that we all hurt since we're all alive, right? And your pain is of no greater or lesser value than anyone else's. It all counts. So that is, to me, what this album captures. It's the sentiment of being lost and feeling shame for being lost and having to figure out both the feeling of being lost and the shame for it. So those two things sort of compound each other and grow exponentially. And it does this by being one of the most poetic of Wilco's albums. And by that, I mean what the poet Matthew Zapruder said when he said that poetry works best when it almost manages to express something that you can't quite articulate. Just almost getting there is what happens in poetry. And this album does that by taking a big swing, opening itself up in a way that it didn't on Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. And you can tell this by how it stands by many to be considered Wilco's best album, and by a ton of other people to be considered their worst. I think something that elicits such a wide variety of response must be considered fairly effective. So additionally, while they didn't play on the album itself, a tour for A Ghost is Born marks the additions of multi-instrumentalist Pat Sansone and guitarist Nels Cline, who joined for the tour of this album and have since become pretty much the heart and soul of the band, almost as much as Tweedy himself. So I know I'm getting to the end of my time here. So I just want to say this. I want to make it clear that I don't believe that Jeff's addiction is the reason why this album is so great and why we love it so much and why it means so much, why it's really perfect. But I do think that the context of that is the factor that raises the stakes on its quality. And it brings it to a level that we don't quite feel with the other albums, in my opinion. It's what puts it over the edge, or to coin a phrase, pushes it all the way to 11. So, in conclusion, Your Honor, Lord Osinski, Evan Sawdey of the jury, I want to cast my official vote for A Ghost is Born to be included in the pantheon. The pride of the Midwest, those turn-of-the-century troubadours, arguably the American Radiohead, Wilco. Let it be so.
The court thanks you.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
That wasn't even prepared. That was just off the cuff. That was wild.
Yeah, I'm on my game today.
Well, Michael, how would you, in terms of point value, how are you to assess what Tyler just spat eloquently?
Well, since I am the high judge of this this case, I am preferring to use a qualitative, not quantitative evaluation system.
Great. Okay.
So I will not be using points. Instead, I have taken notes of some of your points, and I do. I have some questions. Evan, I imagine you have some questions. Mm-hmm. And I think the first thing, we talked about this before we let you in, but like for me, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is what was my entry point for Wilco, and it probably is or was the entry point for lots of people as well.
Same
because
here.
It was so. Because of the story around it, because of just the sort of, and also the fact that it's frankly just a fucking good album.
It is.
And it's something you did address within that is this idea that while like on A Ghost is Born, it felt like they're taking a bigger swing than they did on Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Do you think that if you had to sort of like evaluate the successes of that big swing, do you think there are some misses on here? And if so, like, do they detract from the album at all for you?
Yeah, I don't think I would necessarily say even. I think success and failure, when you look at it in the context of who I know Jeff Tweedy to be as an artist, as like an artistic person, and as a musician in specific, I think they are thoughtful enough about what they do that they are going to consider. He has a thing when he's talking about Less Than You Think, where and you might have read it if you happened upon it, where he's basically saying it was all I had to give. It wasn't because of what was going on with him on a creative and personal level. That was the only thing he knew how to write at that moment. And I believe him when he says that, just because of kind of how else I know him to be the sort of relentlessly creative person that I think. So yes, I think there are some things that could be perceived as that lack of focus, right? I think that the less successful moments that I believe people probably perceive on this are the lack of focus. I don't know if I would consider any of them. I'm coming to a point, I promise. I don't know if I would consider any of them unsuccessful, because a point I didn't make in the initial statement is I think that this is the album by Wilco that is least shuffleable. I rarely find myself shuffling this. You can happen upon a song here or there, but you're not going to put this album on and shuffle it. It just doesn't make sense to do that. It's Wilco's album that is most a complete document, almost a one continuous piece, as opposed to being subdivided into tracks.
And I'm going to push back a little bit on that there, because there was this whole thing about the context when the album came out. I distinctly remember this, and unfortunately Google Archives does not agree with me, which is a shame because I remember it so distinctly. But I spent literally an hour trying to look this up the other night. But I remember very distinctly after Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, the large issue, the band essentially leaked the album themselves. They were able to do the whole reprise thing. I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, the film, everything. But the thing is, this album, as well as Sky Blue Sky, which followed, both leaked early onto the internet, usually by about like 2 weeks or so. And Wilco were because, the internet was the thing that really helped get Yankee Hotel Foxtrot's prominence, they kind of leaned into it a little bit. They set up a website, they let up a kind of a pay what you want, or a pay if you feel guilty because you listen to the album that way kind of thing, while they streamed it before its official release. Like,
and this is all pre and rainbows too.
Exactly, 100%, right. And I feel like I remember there was this thing at the time where the late greats, the 2 minute and 30-second thing that comes on after the 15-minute Less Than You Think,
Mhm.
was somehow, I felt like it was not included on there, and then like after the leak there was something about, oh, by the way, it's included on there. That's what I feel like I remember hearing at the site. I see no articles, unfortunately, that back me up, but I did find, at the very least, I found a link
Yeah.
on Thrasher where they had a leaked version of the track list, which had the late greats a couple songs before. Like it was actually,
Interesting.
yeah, I know, which it was like, that was just in the leak version. That was the leak rumor, but it was like literally right after Company in my back. And so it's the
No,
thing too.
okay.
So the thing is that like while I don't necessarily disagree that like this is a whole collective album, all these songs work within their context for each other, I
Hmm.
do feel like there is this large controversy over the fact that Less Than You Think feels like an epic closer
Yeah.
by itself, and yet then all of a sudden you have this little like bop of little piano thing right at the end. It
Yeah.
could be either like, you know, a beautiful moose bouche that's happening. It could be a little, you know, like just
Yeah.
like a little, you know, like kiss after this insane headache migraine thing that you just went through. But
Yeah.
I do feel like there's not as much a through line on the album. I just feel like the tracks all work collectively. So I mean, we're not even on the tough questions portion of this whole show yet,
Great.
but I do want to push
I
back
bring
a
it
little
on.
bit on the idea
Please
that
do.
like the songs work collectively together, but I'm not sure if the direct track order all the way straight through is as essential as just these are the songs together.
I could concede that point. I could concede that. I could
Okay.
concede that point because specifically talking about the late greats
Mhm.
and looking at, you go on Reddit or something like that, and people are like, that internet thing where like, yo, put these into categories, right? And like, this is a thing that we've done on this pod, obviously, but like when it's done in text form on Reddit, it's just a lot funnier for some reason. But people putting the late greats on sort of like the lowest rung on the
Tier maker.
yeah, it's exactly tier maker, like putting them on the lowest tier of song. I don't think that song's that bad, but I do think that it would be better before Less Than You Think. So, okay, I concede that point. But I will say that my relationship with it, I never shuffle it. And it's because maybe that's the miss that we're talking about, right? And we even talked about this with Rumors, didn't we, Michael? That album is improperly sequenced as well.
Yeah, though I think we also talked about Fleetwood Mac's Rumors as sounding a lot more like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
And I don't know
this
that
is not that.
I would not say that. I mean, my follow-up question was going to be if it is unshuffleable, what is the storytelling of the sequence then?
I think the storytelling of the sequence could be in the imperfection of it. It could be could be in this thing of, and it bears out when you look at the rest of their body of work too. It's like they are known for a tight album. So when you're balancing this thing of like writing these short kind of like Americana folk inflected, songs, but then also sort of like figuring out how to incorporate those, that other sound that is pretty essential to that sound, that landscape sort of soundscape sort of thing that they have, that they feature, and making it palatable to a listener, I think is an inherent challenge when you're a band like Wilco. And this might, one might argue that this was a miss, putting Less Than You Think second as the penultimate track. But in the beginning part of it, I think gets overshadowed by the 15 minutes of drone at the end, because the beginning part's a beautiful folk ballad. Like it's a really, like it is a quality. It's a very affecting song. Yeah. And you look at, I do think that it was brave. And I credit them for that. Next question.
I saw an interview with Jeff Tweedy where he was asked about defending the inclusion of all of the migraine noise on Less Than You Think. And again, for anyone who hasn't listened to it yet, 50-minute track, 3-minute beautiful ballad, and then tones, not screeching tones, but just
like 12 minutes,
varying tones that they all set up. They had different tones. It was deliberate. But he said in an interview that not even he listens to it every time he goes to and plays the album.
Sure.
And he's one of those, he's just like, I get it. I fully understand why no one else would do it there, but I'm still so proud that it's in there, and I wouldn't have changed a thing about it. So, like, I appreciate that he acknowledges it's not like a put down, have a coffee, let's listen to some bleeding noise for a little bit, but it is very much, he still stands by that choice fully.
Okay, can I ask a response question to you two who are going to remember? You're going to remember what maybe the reaction to Tree Fingers was a little bit more. Was the reaction to Tree Fingers as vociferous as the reaction to Less Than You Think.
Okay, before we answer this question, I would like to admonish you for prefacing a question by acknowledging the age gap between yourself and the adjudicators.
Listen, I didn't say anything about being because of age. I was just saying that you would probably remember better than I would.
Ancient dinosaurs. I was alive. That were there.
I was alive when it was happened. You just might happen to remember better than I did.
I don't think there was any sort of like outrage or specific response, because I think everyone was just sort of like, whoa, when Kid A happened, and we couldn't respond
to the totality of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I will say that I do remember, I may have said this on the pod before, I do remember clearly the greatest concert I've ever seen in my life when I saw Radiohead play 4 encores at Liberty State Park in 2001, where someone did have a big poster that said, "I lost my virginity to tree fingers." So,
bring it up. Let them know. Let them know.
Yeah,
proud of you.
Tom York has yet to sign my chest this whole time. Unbelievable.
What the hell? What the hell?
I mean, you flashed your chest at him so many times, Evan. You think by now he would sign it?
You think after the second look of disgust he would get the message, but he's
like, "Oh, I know that. I know that flesh. I know that skin."
Okay, so we decided again, since this is the second time Tyler is nominating an album, that he should have to answer some trivia questions about the band and the album, much like we did when Brian Saitsky nominated Radiohead's OK Computer. We think the second time a band or a nominator comes to the before the tribunal, they must answer some trivia questions. So,
yes,
Tyler, we got 5 trivia questions for you.
Super hard.
Are you ready?
You won't get them.
I'm ready. I feel like, again, I feel confident today. I feel really good.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. So, okay, first question. What is the name of the band that Jay Farrar formed after the breakup of Uncle Tupelo?
Oh, Sunvolt?
That's correct.
Ah, yes.
1 out of 1.
I listened to them, by the way, and I was like, they're okay.
Yeah, I think that's the universal consensus for the most part.
Sunvolt's fine.
Yeah. Which band guitarist was notably added to the touring lineup, soon becoming a permanent member after multi-instrumentalist Leroy Bach left the group after recording?
That would be one Mr. Nels Klein.
You're damn right.
That's correct.
One of the best
2 for 2
that ever happened to the band.
Seriously, so incredible. What an incredible guitarist.
And his solo albums, fantastic, truly.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. Listener, if you haven't listened to any of Nels Klein's other work, freaking go do it today. It's awesome.
All right. Question number 3. What is the name of the only other original Uncle Tupelo member in Wilco besides Jeff Tweedy?
Okay. Well, that's interesting because now I'm getting it all mixed up, right? So you're saying somebody who's currently a member of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is going to show that I'm missing somebody. Because I know Glenn Koch is on the drums. I know Pat Sonsone's on everything, friggin' dulcimer and whatever. Nels is playing guitar. I know Jeff is mostly rhythm guitar and lead vocals, obviously. And then there's Mikkel Jorgensen, who I don't think he was in it from the beginning, though. I think he joined just before Nels and Pat.
Who's on bass?
What was that?
Who's on bass?
Oh shit! What's the bassist's name? What's his name?
John Sturratt.
John Sturratt. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Shit. I forgot him. Sorry,
okay.
John.
All right.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
Yeah. All right.
Respectable.
I'm proud of this one too. This one might fuck you up a little bit.
Okay,
what
good.
is the most streamed track on the album according to Spotify?
I think it's Theologians.
Unfortunately, no. It is Handshake Drugs.
Okay. Well, hey.
Yeah.
Can't blame them there.
Exactly.
Can't blame them there.
All right. And final trivia question for you.
Okay.
What is the biblical story that served as the inspiration for the making of this album?
When you've been doing theater for too long, when you're like, man, I've seen that play, that play was a version of that biblical story. And so you're like, it must be that one. But, you think, oh, that's too obvious, right? I somehow missed this in my research.
I can give you a clue. Look at some of the titles, some of the song titles. A few of them have something in common.
I'm just gonna say Job because it makes sense kind of based on the suffering and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm probably wrong. What is it?
It's the story of Noah's Ark.
Oh,
He
shit.
said, because he said specifically that he thought of the songs
That's
as being
good.
like animals, each representing a different aspect of his
Yeah.
personality. And this is where
Now
it
I'm
gets
gonna look
really
at
sad.
Spotify.
It gets really sad because he was different aspects of his personality that he thought were worth saving at the time, and so he thought that it was like a gift for his
Yeah.
children. So
Damn.
yeah,
Damn.
heavy stuff.
That's
I guess
Let's
what
go,
we're trying
Jeff.
to say is, Tyler, don't quit your day job.
You get 900,000 points from me for that.
This is why we have Evan on the pod.
This is why we have Evan on the podcast. Holy moly. That makes sense to me though. I think when you think about it's the deluge, right? Even I mentioned the storm in my opening statement.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is something really apocalyptic in some ways about it. Which is tough to think about because you're like, damn, that guy's gone through the ringer, but he seems really good now, man. Doesn't he seem well adjusted?
Absolutely.
So well adjusted.
I think he's pushed through a lot, and also that shows in his writing. I remember a lot of people. He has a new book out this last year, 2023, in which he isn't talking about biography or lyrics, but he's talking about other songs that he loves so deeply. And a lot of people said, unlike his other books were good, but this is where it feels like he comes alive. Him praising, diving into like the aspects of other people's songs with love and reverence. That feels like the most honest and happy that he's been in his writing, maybe ever. Like he's just so thrilled about the prospect of it, which is fantastic.
I love this. I love his involvement with Mavis Staples too. Like that's one of my favorite things about Jeff is that he's just like writing songs for Mavis Staples, and you think to yourself, this dude listened to Mavis Staples with his mom growing up.
100%.
That's like they listened to that in freaking Belleville, Illinois, little record table in the shitty little house, and like that is so clear to me. I can just see it in front of me right now. And now he's writing songs for her. That's like his story's amazing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Two quick side tangents before we move on to our next segment real quick. Number one, listeners, this is not a video podcast, so unfortunately you cannot see that Michael Lozinski is actually wearing official merch for the podcast. I felt like that. I don't know where you can get one of those. This one goes to 11 shirts, but apparently they are available. So just
we can make that happen if anyone has an interest.
Yeah, currently this is a private investment, but soon we will.
Small batch.
Yeah, exactly. Small batch. Yeah,
we're gonna do a merch drop.
Get ready.
And the second point too, just when you mentioned how talking about Rumors by Fleetwood Mac being this already sounds like a greatest hits album. I very distinctly remember. I can't remember. I think it was Killing Yourself to Live, the book by Chuck Klosterman, in which he talked about the fact that he went on a road trip with that, with Thriller, with Faith by George Michael, and like had all those albums in the CD changer. Thought it was like incredible all the way through. He's like, maybe all albums stop sucking after they sell 11 million copies. And I think that's just a sentiment that just holds true with me. So when you said that about Rumors, I'm like, yeah, that's probably right. Everyone in your
totally. I think he's absolutely correct with that take.
Yeah, those are two of those albums we have not talked about yet. I would gladly talk about them.
In Thriller,
yeah. Hey, listen, I've been yammering and doing enough side tangents here, but I think there is something going on about you might have a standout track.
I have a standout track for sure. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Would you like to share it with us?
I'd love to share my standout track. My standout track, what you incidentally come to find out, should have known, is the most streamed song on Spotify. It is Handshake Drugs. And it is that's the one I chose, right? I think it was.
That's one. Yes,
I hope so. I mean, you can't technically change it if you felt so.
Well, for a second, I was like, okay, I'll tell you the reason why is because my favorite line isn't on this song, but it's my favorite. My favorite line on the album isn't on this song, but it is my favorite song on the album, Handshake Drugs. So I was getting myself confused.
Well, let's dangle that carrot there.
Let's do that.
And we're going to listen to the song. So if you're listening to us on Spotify or via our YouTube playlist, you're going to hear the whole song right now. But if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, you're just going to hear a little snippet, and then we'll jump right back into the conversation.